Welcome to Creating Yourself podcast. I'm your host, Paige. This is an inspirational podcast where guests come on and share their real life stories. They discuss their struggles, hardships, and traumas. They also discuss how those encounters have helped them change, grow, and the healing process they've experienced. They share where they are today in hopes of helping someone else who could be going through the same or similar situations. So join me as we inspire others weekly to become the best versions of themselves. Hey y'all, welcome into another episode of Creating Yourself podcast with me, your host Paige. Today I have on Emma. She is actually a Chinese adoptee and she has actually been adopted twice. So I'm interested to hear her story today and have her share it with you guys. Hey Emma, how are you?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear your story. You hear people get adopted all the time, but you never hear of anybody really getting adopted twice. So I'm interested to hear your story and have my listeners hear it as well.
Yeah, I have never met another person who was adopted twice.
Yeah.
I consider myself one of those unique stories that you just don't hear about very often. A very not stereotypical and a very unorthodox, past.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was adopted from China when I was 13 months, and then I was put up for adoption again by my first adoptive parents when I was around 10 years old. And then I got adopted by an American couple from California as part of my second adoption. So I've actually had a international and a domestic adoption, which is super confusing for pretty much everyone involved. It was confusing legal process, getting stuff like my birth certificate and proving my citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a really confusing family history.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah. I know that my story is very much unorthodox. Most people, they're able to stay with the same parents that they got adopted from and with. But unfortunately, I'm not one of those people. And so I've always been drawn to stories where it's more complicated than it seems. It's really hard to describe kind of what that process is, but there is an actual legal terminology for it. It's just not something that's recognized in the mainstream adoption conversation, which I find very sad because I know there are other people like me who may not share my exact same story, but who have similar experiences. I'm hoping to find more people like me and gather our stories together and affect change in the way that adoption and fostering is being done right now.
Yeah. And that's exactly one reason I started this podcast, was to have people like you on who have very unique stories, to find more people with unique stories like you to come together and share their experiences. So that's exactly one reason that I started this podcast, is to find people like you. So I'm super excited to have you on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, obviously I've been through pretty much everything that this world has to offer. I'm 25. Actually, I'm 24. I'm going to turn 25 in June.
Close enough.
Yeah, close enough. But I feel like I lived through more life than most of the people around me. I've had to take care of myself from a pretty young age. And I'm just now in my 20s starting to get back to my younger self and heal my inner child and just explore myself. My two adoptive parents, complete opposites. My first adoptive parents, they were more liberal leaning. They weren't religious. They like to have fun, go out, do things, etc. My second adoptive parents, hardcore fundamentalist Christians. They didn't like to have fun, cursing, couldn't watch Disney Channel. They were very restrictive. And even though they're out of my life, I still feel that like same restrictiveness internally.
Mhm.
It's like I have my second adoptive mother inside of me is like nagging me like, oh, that's not very Christian, it's not very moral, just
Mhm.
constantly. And I'm trying so hard as part of my 20s to like get out of that and to like reclaim my own identity,
Mhm.
which is a very rewarding process, but it's also very, very difficult.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm sure it is. So talk to us about, so do you have any contact with either one of your adoptive parents?
No. My first adoptive parents, I stopped talking to them in about 2018.
Mhm.
I see them twice a year at most. I relocated from California to Kentucky, and
Mhm.
I'm really close to my sister from my first adoptive family, and they live really close to her. So I see them for Thanksgiving, Christmas, maybe only one of the two. It just depends on the year, really.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then I stopped talking to my California adoptive parents probably over 2 years ago. That was the very first thing I did when I moved here. Actually, I didn't feel safe cutting them out of my life when I still live close to them in California. And so I
Yeah.
felt like I had to put that distance between me before I was able to find my voice and be like, this relationship isn't healthy. I don't feel safe around you. I really don't want to continue this relationship. And it was easier to do that from Kentucky than being physically close to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk to us about your childhood with your first adoptive parents. How was that?
So I was in an orphanage for the first 13 months of my life.
Mhm.
Orphanages in China are state run. And obviously, with the one child policy, there were a lot of Chinese orphans, and they're run by the government, so they're not very well taken care of. Um, there are different reports about how I was treated in the orphanage. In my disruption paperwork, which is the paperwork that my first adoptive mother had to fill out in order to basically give me up, she was like, well, she had, my daughter had cigarette burns, she had burn marks on her, she was not held. I did not have all those stereotypical things that babies are supposed to have when they're first born, like the being held to a mother's chest kind of thing. And
Mhm.
so I have a lot of attachment issues, and I did for a long time. Um, and that was definitely a big marker for my parents is they said, oh, she doesn't attach to me very well, she doesn't want to be close with us. And they really didn't know how to handle that. I don't think they were prepared for a child that was going to have as many psychological issues as I ended up having.
Mhm.
And so I was heavily medicated for those first 10 years of my life, to the point where I don't remember most of anything that happened, besides getting in trouble and being put in timeout, which I was put in timeout every day, all day. Basically, from the moment that I woke up to the moment I went to bed, I was in
Mhm.
timeout. And so it was just a very, very rough childhood. And I just wasn't very close with any of my family members because I don't think they really wanted me around. Or at
Mhm.
least my parents, they didn't. My mother especially.
Mhm. And so your first adoptive parents were Chinese as well, correct?
No,
Oh,
no.
okay.
Um, my dad was Caucasian and my mom was Japanese.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's actually kind of funny because I was in California and most Californians like they're Pacific Islander or they're Mexican. And then I come here in Kentucky, in Lexington, Kentucky, I go, this is probably the most I've ever been surrounded by Chinese people. In Lexington, Kentucky. I don't know how that ended up happening, but yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are more Asian markets and Chinese people in Lexington than and in the place where I grew up in California. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Yeah. That is weird.
Yeah. Um it's kind of funny too cuz I really don't consider myself to be Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
Um especially during 2020 when we're during coronavirus and everything, there was a lot of talk about from Chinese adoptees talking about microaggressions. And one of those internal microaggressions is not believing that you are Asian or
Mm-hmm.
Chinese. It's because, you're being raised by Caucasian parents your entire life. And usually, you know, white parents who are Christian. And so they're like, be Christian, don't go back to your heritage and like
Mm-hmm.
learn about your heritage. We're very much westernized. And so for a very long time, for most of my life, I've never considered myself Chinese. And so I look in the mirror sometimes and I go, "Oh my god, I look so Asian." Because I don't ever consider myself that way. But in
Mm-hmm.
Kentucky, it's a lot easier to remember I'm Asian because all of these older white men are like, "Oh, an exotic oriental, how hot," And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, within the first minute of me moving to Kentucky, I got catcalled.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it did not take me very long. I've gotten catcalled more times in Lexington than I have in California.
Mm-hmm. How
Yeah.
does that make you feel?
I get mixed reactions because
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know what is going on in these people's head and they're like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I'm gonna call her from my car." And I'm like 10 feet away. You can't even see me. You just see me walking by. The
Yeah.
first time it happened, I had chicken pox.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt because it was July. It was really hot. And I had chicken pox. And I'm like, if you had just come closer and seen that I had chicken pox, you wouldn't have done that. What is going
Mm-hmm.
on in your head that you just, you know, do that from
Yeah.
afar? And it's kind of crazy to me because I don't understand it. I would never do that to anyone
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't understand men in general, let alone men that act like that. So,
Yeah. And it's terrible because it's always older men. I exclusively get like 40 plus men,
yeah.
40 years old and older who hit on me. And then you always get the older men who are like, "I fought a knob." I'm like, good for you. What do you want
Right.
me to say about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like that has nothing to do with me or
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
age or what I look like or anything. You're like, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Or like
Thanks.
they'll say that or they'll be like, "Well, I married a Filipino woman." And I'm like, "Okay, cool. Good for you." And they'll show me pictures and be like, "Where are you from?" I'm like, "I'm not telling you that. That's none of your business."
Mm-hmm.
I can pretty much tell almost immediately when a man is coming up to me and being like, "Where are you from?" I know exactly what they're fishing for.
Mm-hmm.
And I push them away because I'm not going to go into that whole conversation for you. That's not
Yeah.
any of your business. Um, I also did have this one other time. I was at a atheist meeting. And usually atheist meetings, my guard is down. We're all there together for the same cause and socializing.
Right.
A girl come up to me and she was like, "What kind of Asian are you?" I was so taken aback. I was like, "What do you mean, what kind of Asian am I?" That is such a horrible way to phrase what ethnicity I am or where I'm from. That's a
Mm-hmm.
horrible way to say that. But she only cared because she did martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only reason why she asked.
Wow.
Yeah.
Some people just have like no filter about them.
No, they really don't. It's partially because they don't have a filter, but they're also incredibly ignorant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry that happened to you. That's just like it's so unfair that people just don't have the consideration to even care.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, think about it though. Think about the political climate that we live in today. There's no
mhm,
such thing as nuance. Everything is black or white. And there
it's very
is
true.
no way to get out of that mindset. Everything is pitted against each other. It's all or nothing. People don't want to hear nuance,
Mhm.
and they don't care to anyway. And that's part of why I'm always trying to share my stories, because my story doesn't fall within the typical narrative of what a troubled child looks like or what a adopted child looks like.
Yeah.
It's so much more than that. And when I tell my story, I have to explain more in depth than any other person because it doesn't make sense.
Mhm.
Um, and the laws and the stories that, are promoted, for lack of a better term, they're all stories that are quote unquote typical. No one's going to share a story about a failed adoption placement. No one. They only want to hear the good ones where these people adopted a child loves them, and they stay there for the rest of their life and they talk to their parents every day and they love their parents. No one wants to hear about a story about a child that suffered abuse at the hands of adopted parents
Mhm.
and then they have to cut them out of their lives because that doesn't make them feel good. They don't
Yeah.
care about that. It's just another story to discourage them from adopting because they're too afraid to do it themselves. They don't want to deal with an ungrateful child who might hurt them.
Mhm.
It's never about the children, it's always about the parents and how to make them feel. And
Yeah.
so it's really frustrating to me. It breaks my heart. Um, I'm rambling, so if you want me to stop, but
You're fine. I was gonna say about your childhood. You know, you talked that you suffered abuse, like at the hands of your parents. Are you talking about your first adoptive parents or your second?
both.
Both.
Yeah,
Mhm.
my first adoptive parents were very neglectful. That was more of
Mhm.
their thing. And they were very manipulative. But my second adoptive parents, they I swear to God, they knew that they couldn't care for another child, but they went ahead and they did it.
Mhm.
As I got older, my mom literally told me, she said, I didn't want another kid. But God commanded me to have 4 adopted children, and He made a deal with me, so we went ahead and got you.
Mm.
But yeah, they were very manipulative too. They were very controlling, um, very religiously abusive.
Mhm.
Um, it was just a lot of anger that was just like thrown around. The best way I can describe it is something I overheard between my second adoptive dad and my brother. My brother was always getting in trouble. He never figured out the art of just shutting yourself down and telling them what they want to hear. He
Mhm.
always was, I'm going to tell them what I think in my opinion. I'm like, that's just going to get you in more trouble. But one year, he didn't vote. My dad was like, are you even my son if you don't vote? For him, voting was always voting Republican. So,
Mhm.
it's not like they ever voted otherwise. But I would never forget that. I think it was like, it was the year before I was able to vote. And I was so afraid. I was like, I don't want to vote Republican. But if my dad finds out that I don't vote Republican, what's going to happen to me?
Mhm.
I'm not going to have a place to live. I'm not going to, you know, gain keep their favor. That was a big thing for me too. My second adoptive parents. I was like, this is my third set of parents. I can't. Can I cuss?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like, I can't fuck this up because who is gonna want a child that has gone through three sets of parents? I was like, I
Hmm.
can't fuck this up. I have to wait until I'm 18. Then I can fuck everything up because then I can't get adopted at 18. Before I
Yeah.
turned 18, I sure as hell was going to make sure I wasn't going to get sent off. This
Yeah.
was my last shot at having parents. I wasn't going to fuck that up.
Yeah. I can see that mindset for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a constant battle between that and like, I'm never going to make them happy. I just struggled with that so much when I was a teen. I was very depressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any contact with any of your siblings that you grew up with?
No. Mm-mm. No, well, besides my sister from my first adoptive family,
Mm-hmm.
other than that, no. In my second adoptive family, it's super confusing because I'm one of 8 siblings, and I'm the youngest, and
Mm-hmm.
my oldest brother is in his 60s. So my dad has had 3 wives, and then my mom has had 2 husbands. So think of all the children from those combinations. Then
Mm-hmm.
by the time that they found each other, she was unable to conceive naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So they adopted 4 children. All of us are Chinese, but we all got adopted at different times. Um, by the time I came along, the natural children that they had from their previous spouses were like way older than me. I think they
Mm-hmm.
were like in their 30s,
Oh wow.
and I was 11. So I didn't really know them very well. I wasn't very close with them. And they didn't live at home, obviously. So
Yeah.
it was just the 4 adopted kids. Um my oldest sister, she got kicked out of the house from a very young age. She was a quote unquote troubled kid because she remembers being abandoned in China. She literally remembers the moment where she turned around and was by herself alone.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so she has intense abandonment issues.
Mm-hmm.
Um and when my parents kept on adopting more kids, it only got worse for her. Um but she unfortunately is sitting in jail currently. So that's how that ended up. My brother and I are not very close. There was some issues with that. Um, and then my other sister, we actually blocked each other on Facebook. So yeah, we're not very close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
how did you manage to stay in contact with the sibling from the first adoptive parents while you were with your family from your second adopted?
Letters. Letters. I was talking with my first adoptive parents up until I was 18.
Mm-hmm.
So about 8 years after I got put up for adoption, they stopped being my parents officially. Um, I was very close with them. I wrote them letters constantly. And I remember actually one of the first few years that I was with my second adoptive parents, I guess I did something and I got punished. And my punishment was actually they withheld the letters that my other parents wrote me. And I
Mm-hmm.
think back on that now, I'm like, that's so fucked up. Why would you
It's
use that
yeah.
as a punishment?
That is very cruel.
Yeah. But my 2 mothers, they hated each other. It was a pain in the ass, actually. You know how, like, children of divorced parents are always talking about how, the mom and dad are pitted against each other and they're,
Mm-hmm.
like, using the child as a pawn to win the
Yeah.
favor and, like, outdo each other?
Yeah.
That's how it was with my 2 parents. Um, up until I was like 18, my first adoptive mother was still trying to parent me. She was like, your mother's doing a terrible job at it, and blah, 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 blah. And They hated each other. And that was a really big point of contention between my second adoptive mom and I, to the point where she actually slapped me in public
Oh,
because I
wow.
mentioned my first mother. And she got so angry she slapped me. Yeah.
So was there a lot of abuse in the house from the second family?
Yeah. Hmm. That's another thing. I say yes, so confidently. But if I did it all over again, I tell myself, if I was in that position again, I would hire a lawyer or something. I'd fight to get myself legally emancipated.
Mm-hmm.
But then I sit there and I think, who's going to believe me when I say I've been abused? I don't have wounds on my arms. I don't have any physical markers showing that I've been
Yeah.
abused. It's mostly mentally and emotionally.
Yeah.
There were some moments of physical abuse, yeah, but nothing that lasted. And I don't think that would hold up in the court of law. And I find that so infuriating. And I
That's the
find,
sad part, yeah.
yeah, I'm like, every time I talk to my mother, I'd end up crying. Who's gonna care about that? No lawyer or attorney or judge is gonna care about that. And I sit there and I'm like, okay, well, my dad once angered my brother so much that he punched a wall and broke his knuckles. I say, I know that's what it is, but you know what? He wouldn't testify. He wouldn't be like, yeah, he angered me, because he went to the freaking doctor. And my dad was like, you're not allowed to tell them why your knuckles are broken. So he made up some story.
Yeah. That's
It's
a lot of
just,
what happens in domestic abuse as well. It's the same situations.
yeah, yeah. It's really terrifying, though, when you're children and you're told by the government and by everyone, oh, this is your forever family. And I hate it for children who've been with the same parents their entire lives. You tell
Mm-hmm.
me now that that's my forever family, and you tell me that when I was 15 or 16, I'd be like, fuck no, they're not my forever family. I was told that with my first adoptive parents. Mom and dad mean nothing to me. They really don't.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I can get out of that mindset and like remove myself from those situations easily because I'm so detached from parental figures in my
I was
life.
going to say you have the ability to detach.
Yeah. But I think about my siblings. My brother still lives at home with my parents. And, I think about him all the time. I'm like, what's he going to do? Eventually it's all going to crumble, it's all going to break down. What I left the house as soon as I could when I turned 18. And I would come back occasionally. I'll never forget my brother telling me, "Yeah, my dad makes me want to commit suicide."
It's really sad.
Yeah. And there's nothing, there are no laws or no government officials or anything to protect people that way.
Mm-mm.
I actually, when I was first adopted the second time around, I was 10 or 11, I was really suicidal too. I
Mm-hmm.
would write suicide notes constantly. My parents, being good Christian people, they were like, suicidal thoughts are from the devil. So do you think they ever told anyone else? No. They just looked at me and said, put those devil's thoughts out of your mind. And that was the end. They didn't do anything else about it. They never cared about why I was suicidal. They never cared about, what was bringing me to this point. And they didn't
Mm-hmm.
comfort me. Comforting was not their thing. They didn't know how, which
Yeah.
is crazy given how many children they adopted.
Yeah. Did they ever have any biological children, did you say?
Not from their current marriage, only from
To each
their
other. Yeah.
ex-spouses. It's
Gotcha.
really confusing. I actually, when I meet new people, I have a diagram.
That's funny. Just
Yeah,
like, here, take a look at this.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's so bad.
that's wild. But I mean, hey, whatever works, whatever makes it easier.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's pretty bad. Because even I get confused if I'm talking about Kentucky adoptive mom versus California adoptive mom. It's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of words. And it's really confusing. And I can't like call them by their first name or do any of that. Like, it's confusing for everyone
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah. It sounds like it. It sounds like you've had a very complicated and confusing and very hard life for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody deserves that. I don't think there's anybody in this world who deserves to go through anything like what you've gone through. And I'm sure that there's a lot of issues that you've had to deal with in life as well. And I'm sorry
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah. I always say though, I've told my story so many times. Sorry, it's a cat. I've had to deal, with a lot of different therapists. It was a lot of trial and error. And every
Mm-hmm.
time I would share my story, they'd sit there and go, "Oh, that's so sad. I'm so sad for you." And I sit there and be like, "Yeah, objectively, it's sad, but it's also my life. It's a
Yeah.
fact of my life at this point.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing I can do to change that." At this point, I'm like, help me figure out how it affects me today, right
Yeah.
in this moment, and get through that. I don't want people to sit there and be like, sad life, oh, that's so sad, and like cry, because I'm not even crying.
Yeah.
Occasionally I will, like on Mother's Day or Father's Day.
Mm-hmm.
I get really bad those days. But like for the most part, my life is just a fact. The sadness is a fact of my life. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing more that I can do to make it anything other than that. My
Yeah.
opportunities to have a mother and a father are gone. They left a long time ago. And so it is what it is at this point. And I'm trying to like create a better future in which like other children like me don't have to suffer what I went through.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only thing I can do at this point. Because I don't know if you know anything, but in the South, there's like the whole rehoming thing, where like children have to like put on pageants for.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, there's so many cats going across everywhere.
Okay.
Anyway, but like kids have to put on like pageants to convince prospective parents to adopt them, and I think that's crazy, and that's
I've
not
never
illegal.
heard of that.
It's not illegal. There was actually a news story pretty recently. One of the Kentucky governors, or previous Kentucky governors, um, he adopted a child and then sent the child to Jamaica for like a boarding facility for troubled children.
Mm-hmm.
And when the boarding school got shut down, no one claimed him. No one
Oh,
came back.
wow. No, I've not heard about that.
It's sad. It really
Yeah.
is. I just think like that could have been me easily.
Mm-hmm.
My sister that's in jail, we could have switched places so easily. And it's a part of me is like, yeah, I'm a strong person now. I'm strong and I know who I am and I know what I want out of life. And
Yeah.
it's pretty straightforward because I've had to raise myself my entire life. Then I think about other people who just like sit back, they relax, and they're like, oh, I can't really make rent today, so I'll ask my mom for money. And I'm like, good for you. That's good for you. And I get a little jealous, but I'm like, I did all this here, me today. I did that. I did it
Yeah.
myself. The
Right.
good, the bad, and the ugly. I did it all by myself. It's a lot. I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot to raise yourself. And I would love to sit down and like lay down and relax and like, not worry the way that other people have to,
Mm-hmm.
or not worry the way other people can, is what I mean.
Yeah.
But I am really strong as a result of who I am today. It's like it's a gift and a curse. It's both
Right.
time.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think it's definitely created somebody who is strong and independent and strong minded, but it's also you have all these, I don't want to call them issues, but it's definitely created someone who has, things that they have to live with day to day that they shouldn't have to.
Yeah. Yeah. I always think one of my therapists that I loved before moving to Kentucky, she was always talking about my inner child and like healing my inner child. And I think that's what
Mm-hmm.
it is. Like on the exterior, I'm this really strong person, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My inner child is like craving to be loved and cared for because
Yeah.
I never got it. I never got it.
Absolutely.
And, you know, there's only so much I can do for myself. I can, that's a big thing for 2025 for me is I am doing all the things that my parents told me not to do or they'd be ashamed of me doing. So, like, I don't know, like watching Magic Mike. I watched Magic Mike a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was really fun. I really liked it.
It's a good movie.
It's a good movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, yeah, because my parents didn't let me watch anything that wasn't explicitly Christian, so I was only allowed to like watch God's Not Dead and like anything with Kevin Sorbo.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, you're lucky. They made a movie out of it. There's
Yeah.
three of them. Yeah.
Wow.
Actually, a couple of years ago, do you know Duck Dynasty?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you remember this, but the daughter, Sadie,
Yep.
she was on Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah.
My parents let me watch that. We were shook. We were
Yeah.
shook. Because that is not a very Christian TV show, but we were only allowed to watch it because Sadie was on it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is pretty shocking.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still shocked about it to this day. I'm like, what were they thinking?
Yeah.
I'll never forget the season after that, which we stopped watching. They had this older guy do like a really explicit dance to this really explicit song. It was like airplane themed. I don't remember what it was. But my dad nearly had a heart attack. It's quite funny.
That is funny.
Yeah.
I'd be like, well, you let us watch it.
Yeah. Yeah. I watch a bunch of TV shows now that I wasn't supposed to watch when I was a kid. It's quite fun.
Yeah, I would say so. It's opened up a whole new world to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I was young again so I could rewatch all of Disney Channel without feeling secondhand embarrassment for the characters and the situations. I
Yeah.
would keep that up, rewatching Jessie or Victorious or any of that.
Mm-hmm.
But me and my 24-year-old mind, I just sit there and go, that's so cringy. I can't do
It
it.
is. It's hard to watch as an adult. It really is. I'm a little bit older than you, so Victorious and Jessie are like past when I would watch it, but I was like a Lizzie McGuire age group, so like watching that as an adult is just like the little cartoon character that she had
Yeah.
that was like her mind or whatever. It's just like so cringe. It's like I can't watch it as an
Yeah.
adult. It's like no.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the movie's not so bad, but like some of the TV show episodes are just like can't do it.
Yeah. I was
So
watching someone recap Wizards of Waverly Place on YouTube. And I just think the writing was so like filled with tropes. That was it. There was no like genius, new, creative way to
no,
take stories.
no.
Yeah.
But Watching kids shows and as an adult is a whole different, because there's so many innuendos put in there that you catch on to that you would not have caught as a child, that you're just like, gross, like what the hell. So it's hard to watch them as an adult.
I rewatched the entirety of the Shrek franchise last year.
Those are fun, though. Those are fun as an adult because you catch the innuendos and you're like, oh, okay. And if you watch it with, like, I have 2 kids. So if you sit and you watch it with kids and they're like, you're laughing and they're not, they're like, what's so funny? And you're like, just give it 10 years. You'll get it.
Yeah.
That's the fun part.
Yeah, it's really fun. This year, I'm hoping to rewatch all the Alvin and the Chipmunks and the Squeakles, as my friends call it.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I just feel really drawn to Alvin and the Chipmunks this year. That's my weird obsession for the year.
I think another good one to watch is like the Ice Age franchise is another good one.
Yeah. I love those as kids.
Yeah, those are good to watch as an adult too.
Yeah. I'll have to add that to my list.
Yeah. Because there's some innuendos in there that you don't pick up on until you watch as an adult. You're like, oh, okay. So those are good ones. Me and my dad watch. My dad loves Ice Age. That's one of his favorite movies. Yeah. So, well, listen, Emma, I have loved hearing your story. I think you are inspiring. I think you have a lot to learn. You say you're not young, but you're only 24. I'm 37. You have a lot. You're still young. You have a lot to go, and I think you can do great things. And your story's inspiring. And I think you are doing good things by trying to reach out and find others like you. So,
thank you. Yeah,
you're welcome. Thank you all so much for tuning in to this week's episode. Make sure you hit the follow button on whatever listening platform you are using, and head over to my social media pages and give me a follow there as well. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and now TikTok at Creating Yourself Pod. And if you have a story you would like to share on this podcast, email me at creatingyourselfpod@gmail.com, or you can message me on any of my social media pages. Make sure and come back next Tuesday for a brand new episode. Hope you guys have a great week. Bye.